Hey everyone, welcome to another repair video. Today we're going to be looking at this PlayStation 5 which has been sent in, and this has been sent in because it's got torn traces on the HDMI port. So we're going to take a look and see what we can do and hopefully get this thing fixed. Now usually I would test these before I actually work on them, but all I'm going to do is just test the power on, make sure that it powers on fine, and then I'll just get to fixing it because as far as I'm aware, the traces have been damaged, so we're not going to get any display anyway. So we might as well just take a look when we get inside. So I'll test the power on, and then we'll see what we can do about fixing it. If you are new to the channel though, and you like this type of content, I would really appreciate it if you hit subscribe and turn on the bell notifications, and that way you don't miss any future videos. So with that being said, let's get into this one. Alright, so like I said, I'm just going to test this just to power on, just to see if it turns on. I had one last night which I worked on, and it was supposed to work fine apart from the fact that it had a broken USB, and then I went to turn it on afterwards and it wouldn't turn on. It was really, really weird. It did turn on eventually, so it started working randomly out of the blue, but yeah, I'm not making that mistake again. Okay, so we've got a disc in the drive. We can test that, make sure it works. GTA 5, cool. Okay, so it's powering on. We've got the blue light. Let's just make sure it goes to a white light. It does. So, yep, that's absolutely fine. Let's just shut this down. Press and hold the power button. I'm going to let it shut down before I unplug it. Always want to make sure that we shut it down correctly. Okay, that'll do. So, that's shut down fully. So, we'll get it apart and see what we can do about fixing it. So while I'm doing this, I am going to fast forward through the disassembly process. But while I'm doing this, if you appreciate this type of content, if you learn anything from it and you want to support me, there'll be some Patreon and donation links in the video description. Or you can head over to Twitch and you can become a Twitch Prime subscriber. And it all helps out the channel. And I really, really appreciate it. So with that being said, I'm going to fast forward through this. And I'll pick it up when the console's taken apart and ready to work on. Okay, here we go. So I've got the board out and we are ready to proceed. And wow, that's a lot of traces. That is a lot of traces. Okay, so let's take a look here then. So it looks to me like this port is literally just yanked out. It doesn't look like it's been actually worked on by anyone. So I don't think this is technician damage. I think it's just snapped. So one of the problems with these is the port itself is really, really weak. The solder that it uses is really, really weak. And it's pretty common, to be honest. So what I'll do is I'll lift this port off. Once I've lifted the port off, I can take a closer look. But let's just show you what we're dealing with under the scope. So this is what we're dealing with here. It has taken literally, by the look of it, every trace. Absolutely everything. The entire header is wamboozled. Literally wamboozled. This is a big job. This is not going to be easy. So if you look here at the side of the port, what I can see here is the fact that it's took the ground traces with it. So it's took these ground traces with it, which means that this hasn't been worked on by someone else. This has literally happened from whatever impact the port has had. It's the same this side as well. It's took the ground pad as well. So I don't think this is a prior repair attempt. I think this is literally just, someone's had a look at it. They've realised that it's so badly damaged and I've thought, yep, I'm not fixing that. And it's ended up on my desk. So what I need to do is I need to get this port off, and then I can evaluate the damage a little bit more and try and get it working. So what I'm going to do here is this port here, I'm just going to heat this up. Even though it's already damaged, I'm going to heat it up anyway and just try and, if there are any traces there which are salvageable, then, it's going to allow me to remove them. So I'm going to set my hot air at 480 degrees Celsius at 40% airflow. And as you'll notice, there's no nozzle on the Atten hot air. I'm just going to hover it over. So what's likely happened here is this console's probably been dropped. Okay, that's ready to come out. There we go. And as you'll see there, the port itself isn't damaged. it's just been ripped out. So that is not good news. Now luckily we have some new ports, and these ports are slightly better than the factory ones. So what I need to do now is I just need to clean out the ground holes. So the way I'm going to do that is just by using the solder sucker, and I'm going to heat up the area, and then I'm going to suck the solder out of the ground holes. That should do it. Just look at that. That is a hell of a mess. It's a hell of a mess right there. So as you can see there, we've got pretty much every single trace gone. So we've got a couple of traces which are still there, but most of those traces are gone, and that's not good. So this one is a ground point. That is probably savable. That's a ground point, but it's not savable. It's too curled. That's a ground point. That's missing. That's not savable. Too weak. And that's not savable. So that's a ground point as well, so I'm not really worried too much about that. So what we're dealing with here is we've got a missing trace here, which is a differential pair, differential pair, differential, 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 and then pin number 14 isn't connected to anything. And pin number 15 goes here, 16 goes here, 17 is a ground point. We are going to actually I've got it a little bit mixed up. I've missed a few, but never mind. We can see where they all go to. So this one goes here, this one goes here, this one is a ground point, this one goes to here, this one goes to here, this one goes to here, this one goes down here to this test point, but then it also goes down to this cap here in this diode, and then the rest of them go to either ground or the differential pairs. So basically that's what we're dealing with. We've got to restore quite a few traces here. It's definitely not going to be an easy task, but we'll give it a go. So the first thing I'm going to do before I actually go ahead and put a new port on is I'm just going to scrape back these wires. So these things here are called wires, and they're basically just a pathway to another part of the board. In this case with the differential pairs, they actually go down here and to this point here. So these wires here, so they come through that port and then they go through to these points here. So these are all differential pairs, and they go to the data lines on the HDMI encoder, which is the MN864739, just there. So what we need to do is we need to restore that pathway, and we need to be able to get this basically to create a new connection. So what we do is we just scrape away some of the conformal coating, and then if we tin that with solder, we can solder a jumper wire to that and it will restore the connection. If the wires were gone, you can just run a jumper wire all the way down to this point here, but in this case we don't need to do that. So I'm just going to scrape away all of these. I'm going to prep the area before I actually drop the port on, because it's going to make my life a little bit easier when it comes to actually running the jumper wires. Alright, so that's done. Let's just clean that up and then I can move on to the next stage. So to clean it up, I'm just going to use a little bit of isopropyl alcohol with a cotton swab. Just get rid of all of this debris off the board. And that ground pad's gone as well. Yeah, so it wasn't savable. Never mind. So pad number 2 went as well. It's all good though. It's only one extra ground. Rapid Joy technology. Okay, so I'm going to try and drop a new port on this. There we go, that sits in nicely. Okay, so I've got a couple of bent pins on this port. That should do it. Alright, so let me just add a little bit of flux here to solder these couple of pins. Okay, so what I'm going to do now that I've soldered it down and secured it in place, is I'm just going to run the iron over it and just try and tin all of the pins, ready for when I run jumpers. Of course, it might help if I actually used a bit more flux. And I've also just knocked that cap off. Damn it. Never mind. It was held on by a strand anyway. You can see it's got the trace on it. It's all good. What I'll do is just drop it to one side. And then when I'm ready for it, I'll come back for it. I'll be back for you, baby. I swear. Alright, so what I'm also going to do is just tin the traces. So the wires that I've just exposed, I'm going to tin those, because then they're going to be ready for jumper wires. Okay, so that should be tinned. Alright, so next I need to secure the port in so it doesn't move anywhere. So I'll just clean that area up. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to solder these ground legs in, and I'm going to make sure that enough solder goes all the way through the port. So I'm holding the port, I'm supporting the port with my finger just while I get that initial blob of solder on. And the reason for that is I want to make sure it's aligned properly and that it's nice and flat to the board. So I'm just going to secure it in. I'm going to do the same on this side. So I'll add some solder and then I'm going to push down with my finger just to make sure that it's nice and flat. And I can really feel that heat transferring through that ground plane. It's pretty hot. Okay, so there's those two done. Let's do the other two now. Okay, this one. There we go. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to use some hot air. And I'm going to just use the soldering iron simultaneously. The reason for that is because that's going to help push the solder through the board. So I'll do that side and then I'm going to just move the heat out of the way for a second. And then do the other side. Come back to this side. And once more this side. Excellent. Not too keen on that solder joint there. Looks a little bit dull. Awesome, I'm happy with that now. And those solder joints look absolutely beautiful. Couldn't ask for better. Alright, let's just clean this up. That'll do. And you see how that's still loose? So it's still wobbling a little bit. We're going to fix that. So we're going to take some flux. And this side also. So the reason this is still loose is because not enough solder has managed to find its way through to the bottom. But the reason for that is probably because of the damaged ground pads. So I'm just going to make 100% sure that we get enough through there. So I'm going to put some solder on the iron. And then I'm going to use a little bit of hot air. along with the iron on this side. Sorry the board keeps sliding all over the place. And I'm not sure if I'm getting a good enough contact here, to be honest. It's pretty tricky to get solder to go through from this side. What you can do though, if you are struggling that much, is if you just scrape away some of this ground plane, like this. So I'll just scrape away some of this ground plane around the edge. And basically what that's going to do is it's going to allow me to use that new ground plane as an extra anchor point, just to make sure that we get solder on this side. So we want to make sure that it's not going to come loose. So I'll just scrape away at that just a tinny. And then as you can see, it's going to bond onto there. So it doesn't look 100% great, but it's going to be functional and it's going to do its job of anchoring that port down. So because the port itself is damaged, or rather the ground holes themselves are damaged, we need to do what we can to actually get this to anchor down. So I'm actually going to do the same on this side, because that seemed to work rather well. So I'm just going to give it somewhere to anchor to. So just add some solder. Excellent. So basically that's just as an extra security policy. I don't want this port snapping. Solid. Absolutely solid. That port is going nowhere. That port is not snapping off again unless you have a serious impact. And I'm more than happy with how that turned out. Right, okay, time to run some jumpers. So for the jumper wires, I'm going to be using some enamelled wire. So this is basically coated wire. It's insulated, which means that it can cross across each other and it's not going to cause any shorts. The stuff that I use is 0.17mm. It's this stuff here. Now, the stuff that you can buy from places like eBay and things like that is generally 0.1mm. This stuff I actually get from microwaves. So if you want to get this exact stuff, then what you can do is you can take apart an old broken microwave and you can take the fan out of the side of it, and inside that fan will be a motor with this wire in it, usually. Your miles may vary, of course, depending on the microwave you decide to strip down. So if you've got a broken microwave, make a little bit of use out of it and just nick the jumper wire out of it. Or the motor wire, rather. Okay, so it's going to be rather difficult for me to get any kind of light penetration at this zoom level. I will try, but you know, it's fairly tricky. And unfortunately, the camera that I'm using right now, it's kind of terrible, to be honest. So obviously one issue that I've got here is the fact that the port is blocking a lot of the light. And another issue is that you get less light penetration when you're zooming in. So basically I'm struggling to get any kind of light here. So I will try, but you know, I might just have to show a fast forwarded version with the end result. So what I'm going to be doing, I'm going to start from the right hand side, and the reason for that is because I'm left handed. So I'm going to start from the right hand side, and what I'm going to be doing is just basically soldering a jumper wire from the pin itself, just like that, to the corresponding point on the board. So once I've soldered the actual wire down, once I've got it into place, or into, you know, a rough position, I'm going to come in with tweezers, and then I'm just going to resolder it. Well, that didn't exactly go to plan. So I've got the board tilted so as the light penetrates, because the port is reflecting the light and it makes it really difficult to see. Okay, so I'll come in and try and get a good contact on that pin. And then I'm also going to try and solder it to the end point as well. I'll just scrape that a little bit just to get rid of the enamel coating. And sometimes you're going to find that the jumper wire is going to decide not to do what you want it to do. Just like this. Okay, and I believe that first jumper wire is making a nice contact. The lighting is really difficult to actually penetrate here because it kind of reflects off this part of the port, and then it gets sunk up by the middle part of the port, the black plastic part as well. So it's really difficult to even be able to see while you're doing this. It is kind of tricky. I might need to try and figure out another lighting solution, to be honest, for this job. Okay, so I'm just going to cut that away, and I'll move on to the next one. So I'm going to tin the wire. So I've got the wire here. I'm just going to run the iron over, scraping it as I go along. That gets rid of the enamel. Okay, I think that's making a contact. Let's trim that. Alright, so I kind of run out of space on my hard drive because I never delete anything, because I'm a fool. So basically, I think I might have sorted the lighting situation a little bit. Hopefully it's a little bit better now. I've added an extra light to it. So I'm just going to clean this up. Basically, I've just got to get rid of this burnt flux because, well, it's all sticky and horrible now. Okay, so hopefully that lighting is a lot better. Fingers crossed. And good God, look at the state of that. Jesus. Okay, well, that's definitely not going to work, is it? So that needs trimming a little bit on pin number 18. That lighting is just so much better now, just by adding one more light. It's amazing what one light can do. So the reason my lighting's been so poor lately is because the 4K microscope camera that I usually use, the CPU died on it, and I needed to buy a new one. So unfortunately, I'm using a crappy microscope with an even crappier attachment, because the microscope attachments I bought for the new scope are the wrong ones. So I've jerry-rigged it, but that lighting is just so much better now. Hopefully that works. So I can zoom in now and actually be able to see what I'm doing, and also you can see what I'm doing as well, which is cool. That works for me. So I've run the 2 jumper wires, so I'll just need to do the rest. Basically, this is all I'm going to be doing, is just running jumper wires to each point. We'll make sure that each one of them is going nice contact, and we should be good to go. So I'll probably be fast forwarding through most of this because it's a time consuming process, and I don't think you want to sit here for the next hour while I run these jumper wires. Yes, this doesn't look pretty, but you're never going to get this looking pretty. Well, some people might, but I haven't got weird OCDs, so I'm not going to worry. As long as this is functional, as long as nothing is shorted out, and as long as the repair is going to last, I don't want to sit here spending half an hour trying to tidy it up. You're never going to get this looking perfect. Well, anyone in a decent frame of mind wouldn't. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to test and make sure that we've got no shorts anywhere. So you'll notice how I've created some new ground points just to restore all of the ground points there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into continuity mode. And first of all, I'm going to just test this point to ground. And that's good. And that point to ground, which is good as well. So these two ground points here are good. Excellent. And then I'm going to just check all of these pins, make sure that none of the other points are shorted to ground. Starting with pin number 1, 3, 4, 6, 7, whoops, 9, 10, 12, 13, 14 is irrelevant, 15, 16, 18 and 19. And I just realised you couldn't see all of that, but never mind. These are definitely not shorted to ground, which is fine by me. Excellent. So now what I want to do is go into diode mode, and if I pop the red probe on ground, so if I pop my positive probe on ground, I'll just get a diode reading of all of these pins. So pin number 1, we get nothing when I slip off it, 0.816, and the rest should be around about the same. 0.816, 816, 817, 817, 7, yep, yep, and these ones will be a little bit different. It's 0.692. Like I said, pin number 14 is open line, not worried about that. Pin number 15, 0.686, pin number 16, 686, 17 is ground, 18 is 0.591, and 19 is 0.710. Excellent, that should be good. So what I need to do now is protect this area. So we've got a lot of exposed traces here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just take some conformal coating. So this stuff is UVH900. It's made by a mechanic, and you can buy it off eBay for around about, I think, £5, something like that. £5, £5. I don't know exactly how much it costs. One tub should last you a pretty long time. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cake the area in this stuff, because this is going to re-insulate it. And it's also going to secure all of these wires down. And then if someone does come poking and prodding around here, that shouldn't knock any of the jumper wires out of place. I'm not going to worry about the capacitor from pin number 18. The circuit works absolutely fine without it. I think it's a 0.1 microfarad capacitor, so 100 nanofarad. And it's inconsequential. It's just a smoothing cap on the 5-volt line, but there's more than enough smoothing caps on the circuit, so it's very much inconsequential, and I'm not worried at all about putting it back. It's going to be too tricky to put it back, considering we've got damaged traces. If the traces wasn't there and I'd knocked it off, then I'd put one back, but yeah, I'm just not worried about it. Okay, and here we go. Nearly done. Just going to put some more on this end. There we go. Okay, so I've caked that in conformal coating, so that should be good. So I'm going to take a UV pen, and this is going to cue at the UV mask. So one thing you can do to speed up the process is just use a little bit of hot air with the UV pen, and it's going to speed up the curing process tenfold. There you go. And that's cured. Nice and solid, and them jumper wires are going nowhere. Beautiful. We're done. We are done, finally. Okay, so I'm just going to tidy up a little bit, and then I'm going to put some liquid metal on the APU, and hopefully we can call it good, and hopefully it's going to work. Okay, so I'm going to grab some liquid metal, and I'm just going to make sure that the APU is clean. I hate it when people take this foam off here. Honestly, I really do hate it when people take that foam off. That is going to prevent it from leaking underneath all of these caps, or rather underneath the sticker, if the console gets dropped. It's really annoying. Never mind, it's not my problem. I didn't take it off. Okay, so we've got some liquid metal there. I'm just going to spread it out. Just trying to get a tad more liquid metal out. Way too much there. Actually, no, that's just about the right amount. Yeah, that's just about the right amount there. Cool, that'll do. One other thing that I need to do before I actually go ahead and put this back together is I need to prep this area as well. So the APU here, or rather the APU heatsink. So I'll just clean that. A bit of IPA around there. There we go. And then I can just add a little bit of liquid metal there. I don't even need to add any, I can just use whatever's on the edge of the needle there. So all I need to do with this, I don't need to put any liquid metal on, but I do need to just expose the heatsink to allow the liquid metal to bond to it, because otherwise it's not going to transfer heat. So I'll just give it a little bit of a scrub, make it a little bit abrasive sort of thing. I don't know, is that the word? Abrasive? So I'll just use the needle off the liquid metal for that. Off the liquid metal tube. I'm using conductor nought, by the way. Okay, there we go. So that's nice and whatever the word is, I'm going to call it abrasive. Yeah. So that's nice and ready now. Okay, I am going to clean out the HDMI port with some IPA. And then I'll just take a toothbrush and just scrub inside. A little bit more. There you go. Beautiful. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to drop this on. I'm not going to screw it fully down because I don't want to put it all back together until I know it's working. So what I am going to do is I'm basically just going to put a few screws in just to hold it down. So like one in each corner. And let's not trap the wireless antennas under there. Let's not do that. So just to secure it in place, I'm just going to put a few screws in. I'm going to pop that on there, so I can connect up the fan, and we are good to test. So let's give this a whirl, see what's happening with it now. Hopefully we get a display. Now the PS5 is going to have HDCP enabled, which is high definition content protection. So I'm not going to be able to do this on the capture card, unfortunately. That disk drive's a little bit rough. Unfortunately, I don't have any. So it is going to have HDCP enabled, which means that I can't put it on the capture card. So I'm just going to hook it up to my normal TV. I'm just going to drop some IPA inside my HDMI cable. There we go. And turn on the TV. And we have a display. And this console is working. Let me just make sure I can connect up a controller. So I've got my little mini USB cable. And test controller. There we go. And we also, by the look of it, have HDR. There we go. HDR is working perfect. $3840 by $2160, which is full 4K display. Excellent. Well, beautiful. GTA 5, which is in the disk drive. Just make sure that actually loads, and it does, which means the disk drive works. Excellent. Let's just make sure it picks up a Wi-Fi connection. So network should pop up. There we go. Connecting to network. Connected. There we go. That's working absolutely fine. So disk drive's working, it's booting, it's displaying in 4K. Everything is working beautifully. So super happy with this. It seems to be all good. So yeah, there we go. This console can live again. So what seems to have happened here is it must have been dropped or something, because the level of damage on that HDMI port was pretty significant. So obviously this has had a full trace repair, pretty much every single pin. I think there was only 3 pins which I haven't restored, and pin number 14, which doesn't count. So 15 pins in total have been restored out of the 19, and this console can live again. So as you can see, it's working in 4K, it's displaying absolutely fine. Everything else seems to be working fine on the console, and yeah, I'm super happy with the end result. So that's going to be it for this video. Let me know what you think down in the comments down below. I'll always do my best to read and reply. If you do want to organise your own repair, then you can do so by getting in touch using the website address in the video description. You can book a repair in by clicking on the mail in repair option, or you can get in touch using the contact page if you've got questions about repair prices and things like that. If you want to support me, if you learn anything from this channel, then you can head over to Twitch and become a Twitch Prime subscriber. That is absolutely free for you to do, but it does help me out a little bit. It gives me around about $2.50 every month for everyone that does it. So it really does help out the channel. It allows me to buy new equipment, it allows me to buy new, microscopes and things like that. I need to buy a new camera because mine is absolutely screwed. So that's next on my shopping list for the end of the month. You can also become a channel member by clicking on the join button below the video. That's located conveniently right by the subscribe button. So if that subscribe button is still red, then you've probably broken something. Press the button and fix it, because it needs fixing. We have to fix things. You can also donate directly through PayPal or Square, which is my payment processor. Links in the video description for those. But other than that, thank you very much for watching. Join my Discord if you want to join the Discord. There's a link in the video description to that as well. But other than that, thank you very much for watching. And until next time, I'll see you later. Bye for now.